Now you go back to what Steven said. If it falls apart, and it falls apart within the first 10 days to 2 weeks, that's a different conversation than 45 days adding up onto the market time for your seller. You just protected your seller. Even if it does fall apart, you've done them a service by limiting their exposure in terms of days on market. Let me ask you a question. We got some team members in here and some admin. Lainey, I'm super glad that you're in here today, just because I get to be the Lainey show on the Gratitude Jar, but other than that, it's very, correct me if I'm wrong, as a team member, sometimes your job is get them in contract, toss it and go, right? You're throwing it over your shoulder to your admin, and I respect it and I get it. But do you think maybe a measure of
follow-up?
Maybe a measure of follow-up with your admin, having great communication within your team. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? Talk to me about your thoughts on that. Go ahead.
You know, I used a title company that I won't name for years, and we always go with them, and a different title agent got a couple of my transactions in the fall, and both of the transactions this title person got had issues because I had grown accustomed to expecting a certain response from a title agent there, and I didn't get it, and my fault, and I ended up having to do extra work and absolutely go nuts to keep two deals together, which are huge deals. But had I not done that, I mean, had I done what I should have done, which was to inspect what I expected, then it wouldn't have turned out the way it did. So I had to take it all on myself for that. Even though it was seller's responsibility or other person's responsibility, ultimately it's mine.
Yeah.
If I want the deal to not DFT and not to go away.
Well, and that ownership mentality is such a big deal. Like the last part of what you just said, it's our responsibility, right? So how can you increase communication between, and let's talk about admin on teams, but also, like Lane's saying, if you're a single agent, your team is your ancillaries, right? It's your home warranty, it's your lender, it's your title officer, it's your inspector. How do we take that to another level to make sure that things are getting crossed off the list?
Systems.
Okay, let's talk more about that magic word, systems. What does that look like?
Well, I think it's just setting the expectation for each team. Every team is going to run different, and so where the buyer's agent or listing specialist responsibilities stop and admin pick up, and having a clear understanding of that, and then I think a clear system for that follow-up communication with that buyer or seller. You know, if you're unlicensed admin, you really can't have that conversation with the buyer or seller, so somebody needs to be having that. And I think if we don't have that expectation of who's going to do it and when, and what the client expects, and letting the client know what the team's practices are, that's where it all falls apart.
Well, and you can have a situation, and this goes back to expectations, right? If your client is expecting that they're going to talk to Beth, but the communication is coming from her office staff. Now, is she still communicating? Yes, absolutely. Is she doing her job? Totally. What is the client thinking? My agent's not communicating with me. Right? Now, you can overcome that by what?
Setting expectations.
Clear expectations dialogue. This is who's going to be holding your hand through this and this and this and this and this.
The other thing Monica Reynolds always says is when an admin calls someone, they should call on their behalf. And this is so-and-so, I'm
Small little script.
calling for Beth.
For Beth Simpson, right, to let you know.
And fundamentally, that has to start at the team level, where the team understands what the expectations are that they're communicating to their clients.
Correct. How many of you guys, I guess don't raise your hand because you don't feel pressure, but how many of you are using a checklist? To go back to something really basic in your file. A checklist, a checklist, a checklist. And how many times do you revisit the checklist?
Every day.
Here's the thing, guys. Every time you close a deal, do you learn something new? That's the fun part about real estate, right? It's not the same job twice. Every day there's a new thing. There's a good chance that your checklist could be the same checklist you've been working off of for 4 years. And lending is totally different. And appraisals are totally different. And custom requirements may have changed. Things have changed. So are you taking the time to say, man, what did I learn from that transaction? I learned this and this. Let's go add another step. Let's reorder the steps. Let's take this that's down here and put it up here. it's that constant, you know, I talk all the time about tweaks and adjustments, right? You guys hear me say these minor tweaks and adjustments can make massive impact on your business. That's a small step, takes 5 to 10 minutes to kind of brainstorm and go, what did we learn? Man, that really bit us in the butt. Is there anything we can do to change our system that would be better? Yeah, well, we could have ordered the as-built here instead of here. Okay, let's make the change. How long did that conversation take? A few minutes. How much heartache can you save yourself? Potentially keep the deal together. So really take the time not to just, once you've created a system, walk away from it, use it, but assume that's perfect. Really dive back into it and say, okay, how do we make it better? We call that improving the status quo. Kevin.
I want to make 2 points that I think are very important. One of them is the most critical, and you probably mentioned it, I didn't attend the last week's team meeting, but you have to know your client's motivation. You have to remind them why they want to sell or why they want to buy, because what happens is they don't focus on solutions, they focus on problems. A lot of people don't know the difference between a problem and an inconvenience. And when you focus on what the goal is, they realize actually 90% of it is just inconveniences.
Right.
And we can get through it. We've all done it before. The second part of that, and so that one is always reminding them why they're doing this so that they're focused on what is it that I'm trying to accomplish, not the obstacle in the way.
Right.
And the second part of that's vitally important is that you talk about communication with clients, and it's difficult when you're on a team. It has its own structure, it has its own issues. But the most important phone call that you can make is the one where there's nothing to call about. You're just letting them know everything's moving smoothly. Consider that lead generation. That's like only lead generating when you have no business.
Right.
You got to call your clients when just to say, hey, listen, and not emails and not text. You have the conversation is a relationship. You got to call them just to say, hey, just thinking about you. This is where we're at. There's nothing going on, but I'll let you know as soon as there is.
The conversation is the relationship. It's so, I love that statement. It's so easy because it is efficient and effective. It's very easy to hide behind text and emails, right? But there is nothing that can replace that verbal exchange. There just isn't. And it's got to be there. And like you said, the best calls in the world are, hey, we're cruising along. I have absolutely nothing to report other than we are on track. Is there anything you need? No. Wow. Thank you. What did you just create?
Raving fan.
Raving fan. What's our goal this year?
Raving fans.
Raving fans. Repeat business.
Another thing that's really simple and I think we forget about is asking the client how they want to be communicated with, because I'm all about getting on the phone. That's a total lie for anyone who doesn't know me. But, you know, I've had a client who works at a bank, and if I call her, she's going to get in trouble because her cell phone's on. You know, so asking that question up front, how do you want me to communicate with you? Because every 2 weeks or every week or whatever your style is, I'm going to be calling you on this day at this time. Let me know.
Yeah.
You know, just a simple question so that you're communicating in the language they want to be
Absolutely.
communicated with.
And I want to get back to the conversation and talking about expectations. Just little things like this, for example. Some of you may do this. But when you're in the buyer's consultation, remember this. When you're in a buyer's consultation or a listing presentation, is there any emotion involved at that table? Other than excitement for a buyer. They're typically excited, right? This is exciting. I'm buying a house. Yay. Been waiting, saving, planning. Listings, they're either excited, sometimes they're a little scared. So, I mean, there can be some emotion, but for the most part, this is an intellectual conversation, right? When is the best time to prepare people for an emotional roller coaster? When they're not emotional, right? Buyers sometimes expect that they're going to walk into a property, get the home inspection, and there's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 items on the inspection. What do we know the reality of an older house in Anchorage to be?
1, 2, or 3 pages.
Of health and safety, right? Yes.
Move your home warranties up to the top of your to-do list.
Say it again, please.
Going back to what you were saying as far as when people order things, order your home warranties first, before home inspections, before 10 pages of repairs. Because yes, there's a lot of things that are code violations, there's a lot of things that it's not mechanical failure that we're not going to cover that you're going to have to deal with. However, if something just broke and they haven't got around to it, or they didn't tell you or whatever, and it gets brought out on that home inspection, that home inspection repair list can be offset by the home warranty.
Whittle down a little bit.
For the sellers. for free. Other than your heating system, it's $50. So the sooner you order that, the less headache you have at repair time, because some of those could already be taken care of.
That could save a deal. I mean, what if you could pull out the magic card and lay it down that says, hey, listen, guess what, Mr. Seller? We did our job, and when we took the listing, we sent in and we got the warranty agreement ordered. So this and this and this is gonna get taken off the repair list. How much easier does that make it for us to deal with the other 10 items? Now you may be working with your seller rather than against your seller. The other thing is prep your buyer. When they're not emotional, it's a great time to say, now listen, when we have the home inspection, be prepared. You may get a 4-page list. That's normal. So now what happens when 2 weeks down the road, you get the 4-page list? What do you get to say?
It's normal.
Remember when we had that conversation? Yes, I do. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Because they're thinking, what are they thinking when they see that list?
Oh my God, there's something wrong with
This
this.
house is gonna, this is a horrible house, it's gonna fall apart. Set the expectation, set the expectation, set the expectation, over and over and over again. If you don't understand how the warranty process works, and there are still a lot of realtors that are
do
either
not have a clue.
embarrassed to say they don't know, everybody talks about it like you should know. Don't be embarrassed. If you don't know this, how this works, just talk, that's what she's here for, is to help you save your deals and save your money. Yes.
People under stress hear 25% of what you say. So if they're stressed out and you're trying to give them
Just make that
information.
up.
No, actually, we heard it on the Monica Reynolds call this morning. So, but no, I mean seriously, if they're under stress, they're not listening. They're in their head already thinking about all this other stuff that they have going on, and they're not even listening to anything that you said, even if you've said it to them 5 times before.
And that applies to realtors too.
We know we
You guys are under stress based on your job, so.
The other party, absolutely.
It's when you make that call. You know, if they're at work, they're doing a lot of, they're distracted, they're not gonna hear everything. It's like, do you have time? Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Call them whenever they got a bunch of kids screaming, or they're driving their car, or those are probably not good times to talk to them. Although we do it all the time. in our
Well, I
lives.
know for me, if you call me right as I'm walking in the door to my house, I got, the Monster Lab, I got Marley, jumping on me, my kids are going, what's for dinner, what's for dinner, what's for dinner, what's for
distracted.
dinner, and I'm, sure.
And just to add to what Lane said, if it's really important, I like to follow up with an email and state, so you have written proof, because then you can go back on it, because like I said, oh, what, you never said that.
Monica
Yeah,
Reynolds
you can
has
do
a really
that.
great idea. She says, call them, then send them an email about what you talked about, and then call them to let them know you sent them the email.
So I want to hit on that for a second, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. How many of you guys remember the days that we kept a phone log in our files? Right? We would get the files from the title company and they would have that whole page, and what were we supposed to do? What did our brokers teach us? Every phone call and what you did. Why did we do that? There was not electronic communication. It was the only record of the transaction that you had, really. You now have the ability to use email to do exactly that. We have a phone call, boom, 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 here's a follow-up, document it, you've got it covered. Can't tell you the number of times, sadly, that could be important. So I want to shift the conversation for a second and move into, because Lane touched on it a little bit, move into working with the other realtor. How many times have you ever been in a transaction where the other side is very, very difficult to work with?
We're crazy.
Right? I mean, I know I'm not the only one in the room, right? So how do we get through that? Lithium is. TNX.
Right.
Allison has a secret drawer.
We have a taser.
It's all placebo. Stop it. Okay.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is as agents, we're thinking about our teams, or we're thinking about single agent and who I work with and everything else. We don't let anybody else in on what's going on in our head. I think it's especially important with teams. It's the expectations, and you have to have that same conversation with the other agents and say, hey, Kevin, by the way, you're not going to be hearing from me all the time. It's Katie who's going to be doing everything. If you want to call me, fantastic, but I'm really just going to turn and ask her. But if he doesn't know that, and every time he calls me and I'm saying, I don't know, I have to check on it, I don't know, I have to check on it, I don't know, I have to check on it, he's going to think I'm a monkey.
Or you just don't take his call and then Katie calls him back. What does he feel?
Right. He feels like he's put off.
He
So,
feels disrespected.
yeah, make that, communicate with them and say, hey, this is how I do business. Just want to let you in. Is this comfortable for you? It's just expectations. So.
coming from contribution, like when you talk to them, they may not, I mean, just because you expect the listing realtor to order the title report, doesn't mean they did it when they were supposed to. Doesn't mean they ordered the resale certificate like they needed to. Just coming from contribution, asking what you can do. I mean, you could make the phone call to the title company, ask them if they've done that yet. You can make a call to the lender and ask them where that step is.
I'll tell you a great conversation to have. You may not be comfortable with this. This is what, a few things I did right in my sales business, a lot of things I did wrong, but a couple of things. I very much adopted a philosophy that I was anti my job, your job. Those words don't exist. The best conversation you can have is, man, you know what, Lane, I'm so excited we have this deal put together, and my buyer's super excited. Listen, here's the deal. I am more than happy. You need me to jump in and order title or get anything done for you?
Absolutely.
Sometimes they go, sure. And guess what? That's not a, well, they're not doing their job. Now I get control.
If it doesn't get
I'm
done,
actually
you don't get
happy.
paid.
I am actually happy to take that on. The things that I can do and not, avoid liability or picking up, obviously I'm not gonna represent their seller, but if there's something I can do, that's one more piece of control I have in the deal. That's not a my job, your job.
Going forward, what you're saying right now, the worst thing that can happen is you get emotionally involved in the deal and get in the way.
Well, I'm gonna
And
go.
worse- And worse yet,
Yeah.
is the other side got emotionally involved and gets in the way, and you get emotionally involved because of that.
That's a great point. You're absolutely dovetailing right to, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just understand who you are. I did a deal with Teresa Bell, and in the conversation it was, Joe, I'm really sorry, I don't mean to offend you. I'm going to take over all aspects of organization with this file. And I was like, thank the Lord. Go.
The number of people that would say to me, great. Okay, and there's two things here that are important. Number one, truth be told, and I know I say this, but I'm just gonna keep saying it again and again because it took my son 17 years to understand what I was saying, and yesterday he did, so I'm gonna assume the same with you. The other agent is your customer. The other agents at Jack White, at RE/MAX, at First Choice Realty, at Coldwell Banker, they are your customers. How are they your customers?
They work with us, they sell our listing.
That's who you're marketing to.
Right.
You're marketing for leads on one hand, but you're marketing your listings to the other agents because they have the buyer pool, for the most part.
And you want them to take your offer in a multiple offer
You
situation.
want them to want to work with you, right? So, not to mention profit share, but that's just a whole nother thing. I'm gonna, do I have permission to just be brutally honest?
Please.
Here's what I hear in the field, okay? Does everybody put their thick skin on? People on teams, this is from other agents at other companies. People on teams call me to help them write their addendums. I hear that over and over again. People on teams don't go to their team leader, they call me for help doing their team leader's job. I am a whatever $1 million producer, and I can't get the courtesy of respect of a call back from the other realtor. I feel disrespected by your agents because they're too busy to talk to me. They're too important. I understand these are all flawed, okay? So this isn't me bringing the hammer. I want you to understand, we're trying to change the perspective of Keller Williams and our customer service and create raving fans to include other agents as well as your customers. I want you guys winning the multiple offers for your buyers. I want your buyers getting the property. And the way we do that is we build greater relationships. So when you have things like that, here's what I would say. You absolutely need boundaries. I recognize and support drawing boundaries on your time and things like that. But you got to invite people into your boundaries, not just exclude them out. Don't expect people to know your boundaries before you walk it through with them. So if I'm a big agent, I may pick up the phone and say, hey, Bob Smith over at RE/MAX, number 3 agent in the company. I'm so excited our team has a deal with you. Just want to let you know, you're going to be talking with Rebecca, and she's going to be handling everything, but man, you need me and it's urgent, give me a holler. Transactionally, I'm not going to be much help to you, because truth be told, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm here, well, maybe you don't say that.
Just imply it.
They're the best person and they know exactly what's happening in real time. I'm here for you if you need me. I just want to make sure you know how what to expect.
I
We
think
need to show respect to people that have built a business. They may not work it the way we do. That's okay. Show respect.
I think it's a good, to follow up on that conversation, you know, this is how my team works if you're on a team, or this is what I do. And just so I know this transaction's gonna go smoothly, what's your practice? When do you order title? When are you gonna, you know, when can I expect these things? So we're not harassing you and I can let everybody know how you work.
Absolutely.
And what do you expect from us? How can we help you make this transaction be awesome? It's that 15-minute conversation you have after negotiation that just kind of sets up the expectation with the other agent that can ensure that he knows you're on his team
Time up front saves time in the end.
when it's emotional.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we often forget is this buyer and seller might be the first time they've ever sold or bought a house, and it might be an agent's 500th deal, and he might be a member of a 30-person team that's gonna hand it off and not be involved at all. But then it might be an agent who, that's their only deal they've done for 4 or 5 months. So it's a priority to them, and it's gotta be just as important to us as it is to them. Although we may not be involved in every step,
See it from there.
the people deserve, we gotta exactly walk in their shoes.
Absolutely.
See it through their eyes.
Great point, Mark.
We talk all the time about bulletproofing the transaction, you know, how we talk to our buyers and sellers and everything. You need to do the same thing with the other agent.
They're just as much a
From day
customer.
one.
They're just as much a customer as part of, as your, I'm gonna stop and then Kevin and then Liz, but I wanna add this to keep this part going. I don't have statistics to support this. I'm just gonna give you kind of my anecdotal experience. Any deals that I have fall apart, most of them fell apart because the agent injected their own personality into the transaction. It became my buyer, my seller, my deal. Win, lose. It's not we don't own the buyer. And it's not our purchase. I mean, I'm not making the mortgage payment. And I'm certainly not married to the buyer. You know, it's not our deal. And our job is to be that objective, unemotional, you know, stalwart in a transaction. And have you ever gotten into it with an agent where all of a sudden they're screaming and you're like, are we seriously screaming over this? Right? And if you don't start, going back to what we said, if you don't start the deal outright, you can tick off another agent, never know it, and now you're fighting them for the next 45 days and you don't know why. You're like, man, that agent's crazy. Well, no, maybe you offended them and you didn't know it. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just trying to, let's own what we can own in this deal. Kevin.
It's funny you should mention that, because one of the things, you can tell a lot. Just look at somebody's productivity and you know how you need to handle that individual.
Absolutely.
If they're new, then have respect and make sure, hey, want to make sure that you're probably going to have to over-communicate with that new licensee, and then help and understand and just make sure that those extra explanations are in there. That's part of just making sure, again, bulletproofing the transaction.
Yeah, totally. The numbers tell a story, right? Liz.
I was just gonna say that I think that customer service with another agent starts well before you have the offer written and negotiated, because what I think happens a lot of times is you have these buyer's agents that don't pay attention to the showing instructions in MLS, don't provide feedback, don't call before showings, don't lock things up, and then they want to get all chummy when they're writing an
Cancel
offer.
and don't call and say we're not coming.
It needs to start from the very
Sure.
beginning.
That's a great point, Liz.
And not once you're under contract.
Well, that's a fantastic point. You're building your reputation all the time, right? I mean, how do you feel when an agent shows your property and calls you back and says, hey, I got 3 minutes of feedback. Move that hunch out of this, the price maybe 5,000 high, gosh, if you could get that driveway shoveled. Other than that, here's what we like, boom, boom, boom. What do you feel like on the listing side? Man, thank you. You just gave me great information to go tell my seller that maybe I've been telling them for 3 weeks and they haven't listened to, but when Tara shows the house and I can say, Tara said this, good perspective, right? Build the relationship, build the relationship. And here's, not to go back to leads, listings, leverage. If you're emotional about a transaction, it's because you don't have enough leads. If you're emotional and allow your emotions to get into a deal because you're that tied up in it, it's because you're worried that that's not going to close and there's going to be consequences and you don't have enough leads. So people go, well, you have to either focus on lead generation or you focus on client care, but you can't focus on both. I call BS. I say they're inextricably linked. If you have enough leads, it frees you up to provide amazing client care because you're not worried about tomorrow's paycheck. Because you know, I'm gonna close them regardless. Because I've got buyers in the pipeline, I've got listings, and I'm doing my job. Which means I can go to the mat and provide amazing service for this client. Because if it doesn't come together, my world hasn't fallen apart, and I'm not gonna make this into a huge issue.
Gary says actually in Shift, in the chapter about bulletproofing transactions, he says get real. So if you have to do more work, you can do the other realtor's job in order to get it closed. So what? There will be transactions when you don't. That's the nature of the business that you're in. If you're real about that with yourself in the very beginning, you don't get ticked off every time something's not done on their end and you have to take it back. It's just part of the gig. So.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things, even when Van was reading off the names, and he read a name and he used the hyphen that it wasn't even there, so often, I mean, I'm thinking about this, we are so impersonal with our business, it's emails, we're seeing stuff all the time, because we're inundated with all this information coming at us, but how often is it personal? Do we recognize the other realtor face to face?
Contact sport.
Could we see them at could we see them at a store that we're probably there at the same time and say, that person looks familiar, I should know that person.
But that was their high school graduation picture on MLS. So that's really them. But
We're a small community.
Yeah.
We are.
Well, I mean, there's a reason I go to the grocery store, you know, with the baseball hat. So I know I'm going to run into three realtors. Go ahead. You can share.
Well, you guys, you understand, when you have when your business is doing so well that you can just fire the pain in the butt clients, that's huge. That is huge, and really it comes down to lead generation. You understand, that's why you time block, so that you have awesome people to work with. People on my team know, hey listen, if the guy is dragging you down, if he is sucking your energy and you will live, I trust you enough to make that adult decision to fire them. Because that's just not the kind of business that we want. Go work with the competition.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to bring it kind of full circle. What are from this conversation, 43-minute conversation, what are your ahas about how to bulletproof the transaction and keep these deals together? I want to hear what you're taking away from this.
Systems.
Systems?
I think we need to review our systems and make sure that the systems are still adequate.
Schedule it.
Evolving.
Schedule, I'm going to speak Shayna's favorite word, time block to review your systems. What's that, 20 minutes maybe once every month?
Right, maybe it's an hour meeting with your team, maybe it's next topic of your team meeting. What are we lacking, what do we need to change, how can we improve our systems? Everybody come with 3 ideas, let's make it happen, and then let's review it once a month.
You may say, but I'm not a team, Shayna. Who cares? You are a team, you're your team.
Sure, yeah.
Meet with your lender and your title officer, take them to lunch. Hey, we worked 15 deals together this last year.
Or
How
sit
can
down
we be
with-
more efficient and smooth? How can I help you? What can I get to you faster? What should I get to you ahead of time?
Or find that independent agent that doubled their transactions last year, that doubled their goals, and sit down with them and say, what are your systems?
Yep.
And how can you adopt some of those systems to
People
maybe
will
get where
share.
you want to go?
People, and there's no reason to go reinvent it, guys. People have them. What are your other takeaways?
Really keep on top of dates and transactions. And
Watch
pay
the
attention.
contract. Watch the contract. Watch the contract.
Lead generate so you have enough leads so that you can be picky and refer the rest out.
And be free to provide. I want you to hear this, guys. I don't want you to, yes, and I don't want you to hear this and just go, lead generate so I have a lot of business. Lead generate so that I'm free to create raving fans. Do you hear the little change? Lead generate so I am free to provide amazing customer service. Matt.
That chapter that Steve's talking about at Shift is a great chapter to read through if you've ever had a problem transaction.
Absolutely.
It's got a lot of good little tips like that.
Linwood.
The leverage piece, because if you're good at sales, you're not good at the follow through on those dates. So making sure to get them there in the first place, but then having somebody else come behind you to make sure, give you that tickler, hey, did we get this, get that, or fully take that part on so you can focus on that other part.
Absolutely. Stephen.
It's understanding the legally binding part of that and the fact that this isn't just a business, this is a person, a potentially really emotional person that has no idea what's going on. And our only goal is to keep it together and make sure both parties are happy. I mean, that is what we are. We're not a friend, we're very close.
You know, and something that we touched on in Ignite yesterday that really brings this up, the NAR statistic is that 74% of the people would use their realtor again if they remembered who they were. So we talk about database and follow-up, but what I would say as a part of this is, you know, when we're dealing with the other agents out there in our industry, and I've coached people, newer agents, through transactions with other realtors that aren't at this company that quite frankly just aren't